Sometimes when working on different Git repositories, I will have to make commits using different credentials. For example, if I was working on an institutional project, I have to use my institution's name and email, while when working on my personal projects, I will use my personal name and email. I want to write a command line program that can help me quickly change credentials without typing my name and email each time using the standard gitconfig commands. Especially with GitHub emails, this process gets tedious, having to look up and paste my email each time. I'll start off by thinking what my program will do. When it is called with a nickname passed as the first argument, it's going to call gitconfig using credentials under that nickname. There's also a list command which lists all nicknames, a set command which saves new credentials, and a delete command which removes stored credentials. Knowing how the program will work, I can begin writing a switch statement which parses the command line input to my program. In Ruby, argv takes the list of arguments typed after the program name and stores them in an array of strings. To access one particular argument, I just need to get the corresponding element in the array. I check the first argument, and if it's list, I will put a message to the screen. If it's set, I will put the second and third argument, which are supposed to be the name and email. If it's delete, I will put the nickname to be deleted. Finally, if none of the above cases matched, it will mean that the user is trying to call gitconfig using credentials under a nickname, so I will print out the nickname. Now to test it out. I first type list as the first argument, and it puts a message to the screen as expected. But when I tried calling set, it did not correctly give the name and email, but instead gave the nickname and name. So I head back over to the code and realized the argv numbers were wrong. Back in the terminal, things now work as expected. So next I call delete, but it didn't print out the nickname. Apparently I had the argv numbers wrong in delete as well. I then made sure other bugs were fixed before continuing testing. Now when I call delete or give it just a nickname, it gives the correct output. With the switch statement tested, I can think about how to store credentials. For this, I'll just make an account class that has fields name and email. When the set command is called, an account object will be created. Of course, this account has to be stored somewhere, so I will make a hash that maps nicknames to accounts. The list command puts out all of the nicknames in the hash. The delete command removes the account in the hash that has the nickname. For the actual case when gitconfig is called, I will check whether the nickname is present in the hash. Only when it is present in the hash will I run configs. When I try running delete, I get an error which is caused by a typo in the code. To make debugging easier, I also added a put statement to show me the list of accounts. Also, I created a default account with nickname Steve, so I won't have to type in a dummy account each test. When I delete the Steve account, the put statement returns the list of accounts as empty, which is expected because the default account was removed. When I try to set a new account, both the default and new account appear in the accounts list, which shows that the operation was successful. To test the case of actually calling gitconfig, I first set my configurations to usernames and emails that I don't want. Afterwards, I run the program and try to obtain my Git username and email again. As seen from the output, the program works as planned in changing the credentials. The next step is thinking about how to store the accounts locally in the computer. Up till now, the accounts are only stored in program memory and will be erased when the program terminates. To prevent this, I'm going to save the accounts into a file before the program exits and retrieve stored accounts each time the program runs. The file type I'm using is YAML, which can easily convert between Ruby objects and string representations. I first require the YAML module, then set a file path to where I want this YAML file to be stored. Next, I set up a method, which when called with an object in the file path, saves the object as YAML to the file path. Observe the use of mode W here. This mode truncates a file if it exists, or creates a new file if it doesn't. For loading the YAML, I create an empty accounts hash. Each time the program runs, it will first check if the YAML file exists at the predefined path. If it does, I will load the stored accounts. If it doesn't, it indicates that the user is running the program for the first time, so nothing has been saved, in which case the accounts hash remains empty. Now that everything is set, I can remove the test cases. The final thing I need to do is call the save method each time the list of accounts is modified. It is sufficient to add this method only in the cases where set and delete are called. Time to test it out. I first list all of the files in the current directory. As you can see, there's only the program file. After I run the program, a new YAML file appears. I can use cat to output the contents of the file. Now when I call list, the program retrieves the YAML content and outputs the account that I've just stored. I also test calling gitconfigs. Before it was showing Steve, now after the program runs it shows Davis. Lastly, I test deleting an account. Sure enough, the account is removed from the YAML file. At this point the program is finished, but I still need some easy way to call it from the command line. I first convert the program into an executable by adding a shebang at the top of the file. Next, I change the path of the YAML file to user local bin, which is where user-installed command line programs are usually stored. I also have to remove the put statement, which was only useful for testing. Then in the terminal, I renamed the program file to remove the Ruby file extension. I run chmod +x to add an executable permission to the existing file permissions. This step also changes the icon in Finder to show that a file has become executable. Now I just simply move the executable to user local bin so that its name becomes a command I can call anywhere in the terminal. Recall that this is the same folder I set the YAML path to. When I call which git name, it now points to the location of the command line program. With everything in place, I can run tests simply using git name. When I do git name list, it shows nothing because no account has been set yet. After I set an account and call list, the new account shows up. To test git configs, I set username first to Steve, then I do git name Davis, and this changes the git configurations. Finally, I delete Davis and the list once again shows nothing. From now on, each time I want to change git configurations for a specific directory, all I need to do is call git name and pass in a short nickname, which saves a good deal of time and effort.